Okay, we're going to look at the DAYS360 function, and we're going to start out by just comparing it to subtracting 2 days to figure out the number of days in between. And that's going to help us understand what it's doing. And then later in this video, we're going to show you why you would use the DAYS360 function, because by itself, it doesn't really make sense. Who cares if you can be able to count days like this? But you may want to use it to deconstruct a loan document that's using the DAYS360 method for calculating interest. If I look at the example here, I have a start date and an end date, and then I'm finding the difference using straight subtraction, and then also the DAYS360 method. The subtraction, hopefully unsurprisingly, finds 365 days of difference between these two dates, but the DAYS360 function finds 360. The DAYS360 function is actually using 30 days per month, and you'll be able to see that when we look at a more detailed example coming up. There's a US version and a European version of this function, and the European version does the days of the month a little bit differently, but on the next day this example would wash out, be the same. There's going to be very little difference between the two, but if you're doing something very exact, you're going to have to choose which one to use. And now we're going to look at this second tab to show you a little bit of detail of the mechanics of how this works. I have a spreadsheet and I have the same starting date all the way down, and then I just have every other day in a year in column B. The formula in C is just subtracting the two dates. There's 1 day between these two. And really, you could say there's 0 days between them, but there's 1 day that elapsed. DAYS360 function is saying the same thing. You don't see the difference between the two until you scroll down and there's 31 days in a month. So January was calculated differently. You can see DAYS360 doesn't go over 30. The actual subtraction does. And then the difference column reverses after you get through February, because February has only 28 days. If you skip down to the very bottom when there's 365 days in the equation, DAYS360 gives you 360. 5 days difference. Now if you're wondering, oh wow, that's great, but why would I ever use this? You use it if you get a loan and they specify the 360 convention. And what they're doing, they're actually charging you a little more interest without changing the principal or the rate. These examples are laid out at sheetshelp.com if you want to look at them. Just search for DAYS360 and you can find it. But we're going to run through them right now. If you just calculate interest for a year the regular way, what you do is you take the principal here times the interest rate and you come up with 6,500. But if you calculate the interest using the 360-day method, what it does is it figures out the interest as if there were 360 days, but then applies it for 365 days. You would do that with a calculation similar to this, and there'd be several different ways to do this, but I thought this was the easiest way for you to understand. You figure out the 360 days and then you multiply it by 365, and that's your denominator. It makes the interest a little bit higher. In this example, it's $90 higher, which is 1%. And in my mind, it's just kind of a little sneaky way to get a little bit more interest. You can say, hey, this is only a 6.5% loan using the 360-day method. You say that last part quickly, right? But it does make a little bit of difference. And the 360-day method lets you figure that out. And that's basically all for using the 360-day function. If you like this tutorial, there's a lot more like them that get published. And you can see them if you subscribe in the lower right-hand corner. Thanks.